Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar today. Organizations are evolving their talent development approaches in the wake of digital business world and delivering learning in a business setting with a great focus on impactful experiences is the key to attain and hold learners' attention. In the light of this, I welcome you all to the ET Agile World and Skills of webinar Beyond the Hype, Learning Tech for Emerging Workplaces. I would like to thank you all for taking time out and being here today. Please join me in welcoming our speaker for today's session, Yamini Gupta, Deputy General Manager, Capability Development, Jubilant Foodworks. Yamini has over a decade's experience across industries including BFSI, fintech, telecom, where she has worked closely with business and functional leaders. Before joining Jubilant Foodworks, Yamini has worked with Paytm, American Express, and Tata Communications. In her own words, she believes that life is an experiment, and the more you experiment, the better it is. Welcome, Yamini. It is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Apeksha. Thanks a lot.
So before I hand it over to you, Yamini, I just want to tell the audience that we'll be running a brief Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, just pop them in here and we'll get that answered for you. And there will also be interactive polls during the session, and we encourage you to take part in it and share your views. And if you miss anything, don't worry. The recording of this webinar will be made available on the website. Without any further ado, let's begin today's session. Yamini, over to you.
Thank you so much, Apeksha. And I'm really happy to be speaking with all of you and share my experience of how to drive learning in a business setting. So glad to be here on this platform. Let me share my screen. Just give me a moment. So it's a very interesting topic, and it's a very it's quite contemporary in terms of how learning is driven in today's workplace. But before we actually deep dive and discuss how to design business centric learning solutions that enable employees to grow as well as create a culture of learning in the organization, I want to focus on the what of learning. So things like, what is the perception of learning in the minds of a learner? When you think of, when you hear learning, what comes to your mind? What is the ecosystem that we operate in? I mean, who all are our stakeholders? The conflicting priorities that we work in, the growing expectations of business, the end outcome that a learner expects, and our own matrices to drive as L&D professionals. Is there a balancing act that we need to do? And in the middle of all of this, what are those 4 or 5 areas of focus that we need to get right in order to create a learning engine that works like, well-oiled machinery? Once we've discussed the what, I want to talk about the how of deploying these learning solutions. Most of you are well established learning and development professionals in your own arenas. And I'm sure all of you have looked at a lot of frameworks and models. I want to share a 4C model that's been out there. You must have read about it, but it has worked for me. It has stood the test of time while I've worked from one organization to another and worked on designing learning solutions. So I want to share that model with you and what it means for me. And then towards the end of the conversation, I want to leave you all with a thought of what does the future of learning look like for us and how distant it is from today. So with that, moving along, just take a moment here and tell me what comes to your mind when you think of learning. Just take a moment here. If you are an L&D professional, when you think of learning, maybe this sounds relatable. This appears relatable. We are the jugglers of the first order. There are just so many things that we are doing all day throughout the day, from transactional stuff, as transactional as whether the invites are out, to stuff to the matters of whether the new learning initiatives are out, whether you want to do new age stuff like launching a simulation, doing games, or rolling out certificate programs, conducting webinars to engage the learners. There's just too much that's happening at the backstage of learning. And that's what I hope that's what you relate to. But when you think of learning from an employee's perspective, somebody who's at the receiving end of all the learning initiatives, what comes to their mind? Maybe this sounds familiar, this appears familiar. While we keep on launching stuff, and let's accept it, we are fond of launching initiatives. I mean, month after month, every quarter, we need to have new and interesting initiatives to launch. And while our learner is at the receiving end of these initiatives, sometimes they just get overwhelmed by the bombardment of all of what we want to do. Now, if you take a moment here and think about it, there's a lot of work that goes into designing these initiatives, which might feel the bombardment of stuff for to the learner, and sometimes it's frustrating uh, because it's hard to understand. It's hard to fathom why the learner won't understand the value of the initiatives that we have worked really hard to design. And one of my pet peeves has always been, so I am an advocate of digital learning, self-paced learning, because it's easier, it's convenient for the learner, and from an organization's perspective you can always scale it up. But whenever, and no matter how much energy you put into designing digital learning, there's always this complaint that you get that it's not engaging enough. And after a point in time, you want to hear from a facilitator, you want to see a person at the end of it. And when you actually organize facilitator led sessions or classroom sessions, they just don't show up, because there's not enough quorum ever in any of the classroom sessions unless it is mandated. And that's one of my pet peeve, and I'm sure you also have a lot of challenges in getting people enter the learning solution or the learning program. So let's just take a moment here, and I want to hear from all of you, what is one of the biggest challenge that you face when you try to get attendees or learners to subscribe to your learning solutions. So let's just quickly do a poll. Can we have the poll out, please? Yeah, tell me, what is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to getting people to subscribe to learning? And we have 4 options. Okay, getting them to read the email. Yes, yes. Okay, we see a lot of responses. So maximum is completing the learning journey. We find it very difficult for people to either show up for the classroom sessions or complete the learning journey. I think we can have the poll just for a minute more, just for a second more. Great. Okay. So completing the learning journey is one of the biggest challenges that you face, followed up by getting them to show up for your programs, and then getting them to read the email or sign up for the program, even though they are interested and even though you plan the program for them. Great. So why does that happen? Why is it that you try so hard, you design so well your program so tightly, and then just to get them to read the email or to sign up for the program is one of a difficult task? Why does that happen? Yeah. So for that to for us to understand that, maybe we need to spend time in understanding who this person is who is not signing up for the program, and when they sign up for the program they don't show up, and if they show up for the program because you've been after their life to sign up and show up, they don't even complete the learning journey. Who is this person? So yeah, a few years back, there was an infographic that Burson by Deloitte released, which said that today's learner, the modern learner, is overwhelmed with the kind of stuff that we keep on launching for them. They are impatient because they want to do everything very quickly, and they only have 1% of the whole work week to dedicate to formal learning interventions. If you imagine the work week to be of 40 hours, 1% of 40 hours is hardly half an hour. And since then, it's been 5 to 6 years since that infographic came out. And even though we spent the last year doing immense learning initiatives, I think the last year was one of the best years when it comes to learning, because people were readily learning. And even then, some of these challenges have remained. So the learner today is still overwhelmed with the velocity of initiatives that come their way. They are confused because they have such little time. A recent report from Gartner last year also says that a typical learner, an average learner, has only 5 minutes to dedicate every day on formal learning, which is again 20 to 25 minutes or 30 minutes in a week. So, with that little time, they're confused as to what to prioritize for their own career growth, for their own goals. They are distracted because of the technology, because of the ease with which we can access people, access information these days. They are demanding because so much is available out there. I mean, there's so many more platforms, so such good courses are available on Coursera, edX, Udemy, Udacity of the world, and for free. So today's learner knows what is available out there, and then they come back and demand best in class learning solutions from you. And today's learner is unwilling to commit longer hours. I mean, there is a target audience for the longer programs, certificate programs that are hosted on Coursera or edX, but mostly the learners are not willing to give you time to for you to be able to design longer programs for them, which would actually result in concrete skill building. So if you think about it, this learner is highly demanding. They want you to do so much and they want to give you very little in terms of investment. That's one nasty learner, if you ask me. And that's why it becomes so difficult for us to actually give them the proposition of the learning programs and get them to believe in the value of the learning initiative. But then that's the joy of it, and that's a challenge that we need to solve for. And how do you do that? For us to understand this problem and to be able to dissect it, we need to understand the ecosystem in which we operate. The learner is a part of teams or departments, which in turn is a part of an organization. And today's workplaces have undergone tremendous amount of change in the last 5 to 7 years. I mean, all of us have survived the COVID times, and we know how the workplace has changed only in the last year. Today's leaders are highly invested in learning, and with that high investment has come a greater ask on the part of learning and development professionals. And not just that, the roles are changing at a speed that it's almost difficult to gather. I mean, if the JDs expire faster than you actually create them, and if not that, industry disruptions are real, and we all have been privy to that. We have seen how technology has taken over, and much of the roles that were relevant maybe say 5 years 7 years before have become redundant today. In fact, a study from PwC said that what's keeping CEOs alive is the one of the topmost priorities on their agenda is to hire for the skills that they need in the organization. And if you really think about this statistic, which is 80% of the CEOs are thinking about the skills that they want to hire for, over the last 10 years this number has only increased. So in back in 2012 2013, this number was at 29% or 30%. Then it moved to 45%, and then this number has stayed put at 79 to 80% over the last 3 years. And when this year's report is out, you'll see this number increasing even from 80%. When you actually talk about the roles, the actual work that we as employees or our learners do in the organization, in whatever capacities they are working in, you will see that a lot of change is happening there also. As per a report from Gartner, it's been estimated that 10% of your skills become redundant every year, which means in 5 years of time, you are going to lose half of the skills that are required for your current role. And now you might feel that being a learning professional, you might feel that it's an easy problem to solve because you can continue to train them on the 10% of skills that they have lost every year, and then you never go obsolete that way. But no, it's not that easy. In fact, the same report says that whatever amount of skilling you do for an employee, they are only able to apply 54% of what they have learned, which means that at any time, no matter your learning initiatives, an average learner is going to have only 50% of the skills that they need for their role. And if that's not enough, the industry is changing at a rapid pace in terms of the skills that are required. 10 years back, maybe power skills were in demand, but over the last 4 years, the demand of skills have also changed in the industry. The roles are changing at a faster pace. So digital skills analytical thinking, digital thinking, agile organizations have become so important and so pervasive that it's no longer limited to roles that are engineering roles or product role. This has become a much sought after requirement, even in roles like HR, finance and accounts, operations. And that's the pace at which our workplaces are changing, which is why it is putting a higher demand on the skills that you want to hire for and that you want to train your employees on. And if that's not enough, as per a report by Gartner, it's been estimated that 70% of the employees feel that they are no longer, they don't have the skills that they need to do, that they need for current roles. Forget about your future roles. So, with these many expectations, these many changes that are beyond your control, and the higher expectations that modern learners have, if you try to put it on a graph or if you try to visualize it, it's almost as if you have conflicting priorities. Because where you have business on one end of the spectrum that understands profitability, productivity, cash flow, EBITDA, customer delight, and then you have modern learners who are interested in career growth, higher compensation, promotions, engagement, recognition. And in the middle of this, we as learning and development professionals are trying to track percentage, unique learner coverage, NPS. We moved away from feedback. We start tracking NPS and whatnot. So if you really see, there is a need for a balancing act. And all the time we are trying to balance between the two, managing business expectations, trying to gauge how the industry is changing, what would be the requirements today and not just to tomorrow and not just today, and how we can create a greater experience for our learner. And it's difficult. So how do you do that? How do you try and continuously manage or balance the act? So, first of all, you don't panic. We've been managing it for quite some time. We'll do it. And the truth of the matter is that as we have changed, as workplaces have changed, and if you really think about it, our role has changed. We long back, training people used to be coordinators, and they'll just coordinate the schedule, get a lot of training facilitators, and do and organize trainings. Then we changed to become facilitators ourselves, to program managers when we actually got consultants and partners to deliver a lot of trainings inside our organization, to being consultants today, where we actually want to co-partner with business stakeholders and design learning solutions for their for the stuff that's on their priority. And with that, the whole scene of learning has also changed, which is why the higher expectations on the part of the modern learner. And I'm sure all of you have thought about it at some point in time. All of you have had initiatives and successful learning programs where you have been able to successfully partner with business and deliver the real impact. And let's just take a pause here and see what helps us to actually manage the challenges that we face as L&D professionals today, and what is that secret recipe that each one of you have to be able to deliver what's required from us today. So let's just do one more poll and see what you have to say about designing business centric learning solutions that actually result in tangible impact. So can we have the next poll, please? This is the last poll, I promise. So tell us, what makes your learning solutions business centric? Okay, great. Faster responses. Okay, I think we have a few seconds more. So if you haven't responded, please respond onto the poll. And if you feel that there is something that the poll options don't cover, maybe you can type it in the chat window, and we can have a look at what works for you and what is the tried and tested practice that you have applied time and again. Great. So the polling is closed now. A lot of people have said application-based projects where you actually create avenues of applying the skills that they have learned, that the employees have learned, to custom content, yes, to detailed diagnostic. And a very few people have said that iterative design, where you actually work with the learners and improvise the learning solution as you go work. Okay, interesting. Quite interesting. So let me share with you what has worked for me over the last 10 years while I worked with organizations like American Express that were and Tata Communications that were highly matured in their learning and development initiatives, to Paytm where there was a lot of flux and we actually went on innovating and experimenting as we worked every single day. So for me, and if out of my experience and the research that I have done considerably on what other organizations do in terms of getting their learning and development ecosystem right, I think these are the 4 5 things that work the best. So the first thing that I feel works greatly with learners is creating an on demand learning system. Today, we actually live in an era of instant gratification. If we want food, we can get it instantly delivered. If we want to watch a movie, we don't need to wait for it. We can search it in a matter of minutes and we can start watching it. Today is a today is the time when whatever we want, we can get it instantly. And that's how learning has to move. Learning also has to move to an instant gratification model where if an employee is trying to search for something, trying to learn something, they should be able to get it immediately. And we shouldn't lose a lot of time in planning an intervention for them or making it available for them. Now, you might wonder why, because if you really think about it, when does an employee learn? There are 3 4 scenarios when somebody wants to learn. A, if they are stuck in a problem. B, if they are trying to learn something more out of curiosity. Or C, if they are aspirational and they want to pick up skills or in areas that they don't know yet, but they feel that it's going to help them in their career or a side project. So if you lose that window of opportunity to maximize learning, you've just lost it, because then the employee is going to either ask a colleague, which is what the research says happens most of the time, or they'll just fix it somehow and then move over to the next topic. So to maximize that window of opportunity, we need to have learning solutions that could be delivered in an on demand fashion. The next area where we actually can create a lot of value and enable employees to grow in their careers is to provide targeted learning, where you can actually which is where your business conversations or your relationships with business come into play, where you actually think about what is it that the business needs, what are the skills that would actually deliver their priorities, and create targeted learning solutions, which could be skills specific depending upon the skills that are relevant for your organization, which could be role specific. So you can start off with the roles that are critical for you and you uh, start planning learning interventions for them, or you look at the whole picture, you figure out the important role specific skills for everybody in the organization and you drive learning accordingly. And the other way, which is like hyper customized way, is to go by personalization, where you actually deliver learning solutions basis the personal preferences and growth aspirations of employees. And when you actually do that, this is how you enable people to grow in their careers, because A, you have captured their interests, and B, you are helping them to move to their aspirational and creating aspirational value. Which brings me to the third point, which is actually planning learning from an aspirations point of view. Much of the time our learning initiatives are focused on what the business wants or what the organization wants, what is the need of the hour. But we need to equally focus on the need of the future, which is where you build aspirational learning programs. And here maybe you can do plenty of stuff. You can do learning programs on cross functional skills. You could organize projects. A lot of you said that you actually create business value by giving them application based projects. You can have an internal forum in the organization and enable people to post projects, enable leaders, colleagues, leaders as well as employees to post projects and partner with each other. Coaching and mentoring also helps a great deal in enabling people to actually develop cross functional skills and also network. You'll see that a lot many times people can develop the skills if they really need to. They'll figure out the way to do that. But most of the times, you just want to network. You just want to follow the influencers out there and connect with the leaders in the organization. And that's where coaching and mentoring helps a great deal. That's the other area that you can focus on. The next is in creating your learning solutions integrating your learning solutions with the rest of the ecosystem, which is what learning in the flow eh, is termed. A lot many times us we learning and development professionals are blamed that we get very active between April to June, and then we go in hibernation between July to August to September because we are planning our initiatives. And then we come back with a rigor in December because we need to complete our targets, and we keep on pushing people to do learning programs between December to March, where they are already burdened with their own targets, their own business objectives. And there is truth, somewhat of a truth in this also. So there is a need to actually create learning as a sustainable year round activity. Learning should be continuous. It shouldn't be dependent on initiatives. It shouldn't be a function of you launching an initiative. If somebody wants to learn, they should have easy access to something then and there. And one of the shortest and the short way to do that is to partner with MOOC providers, get a Coursera, a Skillsoft, and edX in your organization and get people to learn. And if you can't do that, if you don't have the budget to get that, or if you don't feel that that's not something that will help you, maybe create a training calendar and continue to do those training programs throughout the year in your organization. So people have something to do all the time. And if not that, maybe you can create smaller videos, create a YouTube channel of your own and host it in the organization. So if somebody is trying to search for something, maybe they can log on to the channel that you have created and figure out and see how, find the content or resource for their need. And the last bit that I feel is really important to get the learning ecosystem right is to actually design modern and contemporary solutions. Let's accept it. We live in a world where we have outsourced the most trivial tasks like setting up an alarm or checking out what time it is, depending upon the maps to tell us which route is the best, even though we travel on that route most frequently and we know where the destination is. Technology is there in every aspect of our life, and technology has to be there in the ways we deliver learning also. And one of the few ways to do that is to actually get chatbots enabled. So if somebody is say working on a proposal and they want to figure out a few templates to work on that proposal, maybe they can take the help of the chatbot, and the chatbot can give them some 2 3 recommendations from open source or whatever is available on the internet. Or you can figure out the modern and contemporary solutions like simulations or games. A lot of organizations have started to do augmented reality or virtual reality solutions to train people in a particular to kind of simulate a particular ecosystem and train people beforehand. So I think that this is it. If we can get this right, this takes care of 80% of the stuff that we do. And if we can get this in as part of our learning ecosystem, our learning engine is going to run as well-oiled machinery. And if and it sounds easy, but it's not as easy as it sounds. In fact, the catch is in the deployment. We know what is relevant, we know what is going to work, but when we start deploying all of this, the one of the most common mistakes that we make is we try to get everything right and we try to get everything out for the learner. So whatever somebody is looking for, they should be able to get it. And what happens in the pursuit of that is this, that we try to get everything together. For new age, modern, contemporary continuous learning, we'll get out mobile learning, virtual reality, leadership simulations. We'll get micro learning because some people learn in bite-sized format. We'll get webinars so that people will get an opportunity to engage with industry experts and network at the same time. But somewhere in our effort to do that, we lose on the narrative. And the our end customer, the learner, is still confused. They don't know what's going to help them further their goals, further their career aspirations, which is why we need to focus a lot on the narrative and a lot on customize and a lot on filtering and funneling the learning programs that should reach our customer in ways that's going to help them build their careers, and which means the deployment. We need to be cognizant of how these learning solutions get deployed, and that's exactly what I want to share with you the next, the how of learning deployment, what's worked with me over the last few years. you must, like I said, you must have seen a lot of frameworks, and the 4 C's that I'm going to share with you might not be new, but this has stood the test of time for me, and I have always seen these working. So let me share with you what these 4 C's mean for me, and what goes under each of these to create the best of the experiences. So the first thing that I feel that everybody should focus on is the context of the organization, the actual business realities that you have. What does your organization want? Do you have a few set of skills that you want the whole organization to be trained on? In one of my previous assignments, our organization focused a lot on strategy, and we felt that everybody in the organization should learn strategic acumen. So we rolled out a learning program for everybody in the organization and made it compulsory. For tech organizations these days, maybe analytical thinking and analytics is important. So you can pick up that theme that's relevant for everybody in the organization and create learning programs accordingly. And if that's not the case, maybe just figure out what your organization wants and where is it headed. Then you funnel down and you speak with business to understand what are each of the business's priorities, which is where your LNAs come into play. And while LNA doing surveys is a really good tool, I feel that we should have the business conversation going year round. You should always have a dialogue going with your business. Keep on telling them where their people are, how much are they learning, what are they learning, tell them what is new in the industry, send them newsletters, send them white papers, ask them how is it going. I mean, at max they'll not respond to you, but many a time you'll be surprised that business gets interested in what you are doing and then start reaching out to you if they are stuck in a problem. So keep that conversation going and just don't depend on the LNAs or the structured discussion. You will see, or maybe some of you must be doing it already, but you'll see that there's a lot of value in doing informal discussions and hearing from them where their business is headed towards. Then, of course, you can focus on the role requirements, what your roles want in each of the businesses. See how much of a skill building they need. If they need only knowledge, maybe you don't need to focus a lot on the design, on the depth of the learning solution. You just give them the fundamentals, and there will be always a few roles that will require deeper skill building, which is when you go deeper. So focus a lot on role level skills or the role requirements. And then of course you can go on to personalization. One of the it's out there in the industry where people have started to focus on learning personas. I mean, how do people learn? There are a few people who will only be able to dedicate 5 minutes every day. For them, bite-sized learning works perfectly well. Micro learning, where you give them 10-minute, 15-minute resource, an article, a video, a TED talk every day, and they'll be more than happy because they continue to learn incrementally. But then there are people who, and that's another learning persona, who want to learn in longer stretches of time, who would love a Coursera certificate, Coursera program, who would like to deep dive. For them, you create longer programs. There are people who want to learn a little bit of everything. For them, you create eclectic learning programs. So figure out what works for your organization, what kind of personas you can find in your organization and create, and then design learning solutions for them. The other thing that has worked for me is communication, and I feel we don't do a great job at communication as L&D professionals. We send out the launch announcement, we send out the progress report, and then we just keep on sending reminders to people that please complete this, you haven't completed this, there's a pending assignment. I feel we can change our communication strategy. We can start off with communications, launch communications, informative communications, and then we can change our style to running campaigns where you can pick up a skill and do a lot of communication around it as to how do you build that skill, where is that skill is relevant, what all roles that skill is relevant in, and then pitch your learning solution as a means to develop that skill, or as a means to develop that career. And then if you think about it, you'll get a lot of ideas on how do you run campaigns. A lot many times our communications go out from our mailboxes or a corporate training mailbox. Try to figure out other people than you, who will be equally interested in sending out those communications. Find out your spokespeople. And once you start finding out, you will find plenty of people who are always enthusiastic about learning, always enthusiastic about telling people that this is what they should learn, and get them to do some of the communication for you. And communication doesn't mean only email communications. You can set up communities in your organization and get people to talk on those communities, Yammer or Microsoft Teams, whatever tool you have. Just get the conversation going and never lose momentum is something that I have felt always worked for us. Then just try and get people curious about your learning solutions. How do you do that? Start tracking learner behavior. See when is it that they are learning? What is it that's becoming favorite for what section of the organization? So in my previous assignments, we once the strategic acumen learning program that I was telling you, we tried to send it via a mobile app. So learners had to download mobile apps and start learning it. And then when we were trying to analyze the completion records, we realized that a lot of people are learning at 7 p.m. every day. For some reason, they all were logging in at 7 o'clock in the evening. So we started sending out push notifications around 6:55, 6:50 p.m. and we saw an immediate spurt in the learning completion. And sometimes the other thing that you can try is to share insights with them. So what we have seen is when there's a group of people who are learning, and if you tell them that 30%, 40% of your colleagues have completed this course, why don't you do it? People feel that they are being left behind and they want to jump the bandwagon. And those kind of communications have always worked because they pique the curiosity. Or you tell them the skills that are relevant for a particular career, and give them a little bit of a note on how do you build those skills. And then people get curious about how to build that and how to grow in their career, and hence get interested in your learning solutions. And together all of that actually form the culture that that which is sorry, which is the only way in which you can get learning to grow. How do you build culture? Most of us think that getting leadership sign-ups is the only way to build culture because it is driven from top to bottom. But no, you can actually do plenty of stuff to create a culture of a learning organization. Of course, leader sign-ups is one way, but if you start incentivizing learning, uh, which could be in a way to feature your learners. So don't only focus on the top learners or the top performing employees, but also start focusing on people who have different kinds of expertise. Give them a chance to do webinars inside the organization. Why should you only have experts, or why should you have only have industry leaders to do webinars? You can get interested people to also do webinars. Organize a lot of peer-to-peer learning sessions. In our organization, we call it cross learn commune, where we invite people who have expertise in one area to actually deliver talks or to actually do working sessions with others. And we have seen really interesting results of cross learn commune. People are always coming to us and asking, when are we going to do the next? In fact, this is a practice that's being applied in the industry out there. Google does it. They run this program called Googler to Googler, where Google employees conduct sessions for fellow employees, and that's been one of their successful initiatives. And this is how you start building culture, when you focus on uh, all aspects and all components of your organization. And when you are deploying all of this, there are always a few things when you, I mean, this is all good to know information, but then how do you do the how? What are some of the things in which you can think and design your learning solutions and create a culture where everybody is interested in learning? So let me share with you a few not techniques, a few established practices also on that front. So the first thing is, we spend a lot of time in designing learning solutions, in designing content, in designing journeys, getting the right construct out, perfecting the solutions. Maybe we need to change the approach a little bit. The next time when you are working on an initiative or a need or a business requirement, think like an engineer. Treat learning as a product, where the first thing that you do is to design the minimum viable product. The minimum viable product could be the basic learning program that everybody should have in your organization, or that everybody should have in that function or in that team. It could be a self-paced learning program, it could be a digital learning program, it could be a buffet of programs that you already have with a little bit of exercises in between. And once people have done that and you have established the need for that, many a time it happens we design programs and nobody does that, or we see very little impact of those programs. So just have a minimum viable product and get everybody to learn. And once people start learning, then you level up and offer deeper skill building interventions, which could be workshops, which could be state of the art programs that you have partnered with external vendors on. And you give the opportunity to people who have demonstrated intent and will to learn, and or they need deeper expertise. For example, if you are running say a program on data analytics, and if you feel that your organization is moving to in that direction, and you want everybody to be trained on that, so you give an analytical thinking program, a basic program to everyone, but you feel that product and engineering teams need deeper practice, so you give them workshops to those people. Or you can give workshops as a reward measure to people who have completed step 1. And the next step after level up, you actually start thinking from a role or a functional perspective. So once you have done analytical thinking basic program, say in the same example, you have offered workshops, maybe then you start running programs on analytical thinking for HR, analytical thinking for finance, for for products, and you do different solutions in each of these once people have reached that level. And the last bit, if you are up for it and if you think is going to help you, depending upon the context of your organization, is to give personalization. So say for me, I'm in HR and I get to learn analytics for HR or analytics for learning. But I have some other aspirations. I want to grow in terms of my analytical capabilities, and I want to start coding and develop training models of our own. So the organization should give the liberty to people who want to learn more and give them cross functional programs. So programs like basics of Python should be available to me. The organization should have provisions for me to be able to learn programming and coding. And that's what you can do in terms of personalization. This way people own up their own learning agendas, and you actually enable the ecosystem for them. So that's something that has worked for me, designing like an engineer. And once you have designed the programs, when it comes to making it available, I would say that if you start advertising like a marketeer, that also works. So most of the times what happens when we actually sell our programs, we'll brand it. We'll think of a name, we'll think of a hashtag these days, we'll have an icon, we'll have a tagline, we'll have some collateral ready. All of that is great because it differentiates our programs. But what has worked for me and for my colleagues and my knowns in the community is to send out teasers always. And this is a very simple thing if you see, but it always works for me. When I send out teasers and sneak peeks before the launch of a program, there is always a certain section of the organization that gets excited, and then that starts waiting for the program. Then you exploit all channels. Just don't depend on email as your only email or forums to actually sell your programs. Start maximizing other channels. For example, you can create a YouTube channel of your own. You can have videos collected on that channel announced there. You could have communities inside your organization, make the announcements there. Last year in my current organization, we ran a campaign called hashtag my learning moment on LinkedIn. So what we did, we asked people to post their skill badges. Once they have completed a Skillsoft course, they get a skill badge. We started asking them to post that skill badge and their takeaway on the LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, and use the hashtag my learning moment. And the campaign picked up so much, people got so excited that they started doing a lot of programs, started earning more skill badges, and started posting more on LinkedIn. And other clients of Skillsoft picked this up on LinkedIn, and we saw that other companies that have invested in Skillsoft also started running the campaign hashtag my learning moment. And this was other employees who picked up on that, and that created such good positivity, such a vibe about learning in the organization, that it was phenomenal. So maybe you can also start thinking about leveraging other channels which are available to you. If you have an app, maybe advertise on your app, on your HRIS, on your technology systems, and it's going to give you very interesting results. You can also send out push notifications. Everybody sees a push notification on their mobile and advertise there. Other than that, leadership videos, sound bites always work. The other thing I have felt works is to create the perception of exclusivity. I mean, we all know that learning should be democratized and it should not be the privilege of only top performing employees. And it should not be used, definitely should not be used as a punitive measure for people who are struggling. But when you create the perception, for example, you can roll out your journeys, learning programs in stages. And once somebody has completed stage one, you give them access to stage two, create like a video game, and then you start advertising that these many people only have access to stage two. This way you create an exclusive club that everybody wants to be in, and hence you actually start creating that value on learning programs, that aspirational value on learning programs. Other thing is, again, to leverage influencers. Everybody out there in the world has started to leverage influencers. A lot of business have moved away from celebrity endorsements to influencers on social media. You would also have influencers in your organization, employees who've been around for a long time, who are tenured. There are employees who have huge fan following. There are employees who are well connected with various departments and functions in your company. Use them as influencers and use them to get the communication, the word out on your learning programs. And the last bit is to target it. I think this always works. Figure out how, what section of your organization. Doesn't mean that it is going to be one team. It could be a group of people, it could be a particular generation, it could be people who joined the same day, it could be people who have spent only 6 months in the organization. Figure out what are those groups and what are their learning patterns. There are people who love to get on webinars. There are people who love to get on webinars if it is scheduled with an internal leader. There are people who want to finish everything because they are in a race of completing, getting as many certificates as they can. And our job is to actually customize that offering to that learner. So figure out the personas, the patterns that exist in your company, and then start pushing learning solutions. The third thing that I want to talk about is design insights based communication. What do I mean by that? Tell people who's learning what. We all are interested in what our neighbor is doing, and who's following what, who's building what kind of skill. And this is what I have seen personally. A lot of my digital programs pick up a lot of traction when I start telling employees how many of their colleagues have completed which program. Or if I just modulate that concept a little bit and tell them that in your role 40% or 50% of employees have these top 5 skills. And how do you develop these skills? These are the programs. People just immediately take away to that. They'll sign up, they'll log in, they'll begin the learning program. And then how long you can hook them up to the learning depends upon the quality of your program also. So this always works. The next thing that you can do, tell them what's trending. This works for all of us. A lot of journalism dot coms companies have made bucks with telling us, 10 things to do now, 10 things to do tomorrow. Why can't we do that in learning ourselves? Tell people what are the top programs in your company, what are the top programs in their team or department, what are the top programs in which categories, say data analytics, people manager capability building, functional skills like Six Sigma. And now with the help of technology you can even track who is searching for what. And if you start giving people these insights, they immediately get hooked and get interested in learning. And the tried and tested version, which is when you tell them what their leaders are doing, what skills they learn, what programs they learn, what programs they have liked, who they are following. One of the other things that I have seen working, and when you club it with talent management initiatives, when you run career growth initiatives in your company, and if you club this with them, it really picks up. So figure out the leaders who have grown really fast in their careers and tell how they have grown fast in their careers. And it's a very interesting insight to take. Some people grow fast in their career because they have been in different roles. They just continue to pick different roles. Some people grow fast in their career because they have invested a lot in learning, a lot in upgrading their skills. And some people grow really fast in their career because they have always gone a step beyond. They've always stepped up. So figure out that and publish those leadership stories in your communities, in your company forums, and people just love it. Employees just love it when they know that somebody has done it. It works. It's a formula. Maybe I can try that. And that's another way to push your learning programs, to not just push your learning programs, create a pull for your learning programs where people reach out to you and ask what is the next program you are launching. And all of this leads to creating a really interesting learning culture in your organization where you're just not dependent on leader sponsorship or leadership buy-in. You can also focus on other elements, which could be the smooth flow of knowledge. I mean, if you really think about it, and we spoke about it a while back, that learning culture is just not a function of leadership buy-in or investment. You need to figure out other things. How do you create a culture of learning if nobody shares the knowledge that they have? So create avenues in your company where people are willing to share what they know. The one way to do that is to organize peer-to-peer learning sessions or peer-to-peer webinars. Other way is to actually set up communities. One of the biggest brands in the world, Apple, you would have noticed, those of you who are interested or those of you who use those products, Apple products don't come with a user manual. None of the Apple product will come with a manual which will tell you how to use that product. And if you face a challenge, you actually go to Apple communities where the users of Apple products tell you how to fix that problem, because people are so passionate about these products that they help each other. Maybe you need to create a similar kind of thing in your company and build that culture. Another way to build a culture on learning is to get the dialogue going. I mean, if you are only talking about the initiatives that you have launched, the skills that you need, the need, you will never get a good culture. To actually embed the elements in the culture, in the fabric of your organization, you need to get a conversation going. Ask what people are learning, recognize what people are learning, just encourage people to share what they are learning. We all share, what movies have we watched, what did we do on weekends. We do it really interestingly. We feel that the other person would be interested in knowing. Maybe work on creating conversations where people are just telling each other that this is the program that we learned. And similar to the campaign that we ran in our organization, hashtag my learning moment, which was just to tell by posting skill badges that what are the programs they are learning. And it strengthens the whole feel of what programs are you learning. Allow people to learn, allow people to feature, allow people to reflect. Until unless people don't think about what they could have done better or what more they need to know, they'll never realize what else is missing and how they can fix that by learning new programs or learning new skills. So maybe focus on getting people to share their failure stories or getting people to reflect. And then of course peer-to-peer learning and incentivizing learning by focusing on 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 the learner itself and not just the outcome of your initiatives. And together with all of that, you can create a workplace that would fit the learning for the 21st century, where you have learning solutions as products, where you advertise them as marketeers, give insights to your end customers and not just reminders, where your learning engine functions on demand learning, targeted learning, create an aspirational value because people see the linkage of their career goals and career growth with your learning programs. It's integrated learning in the flow. If I am working on something and I want to search for something, I don't need to check with my colleague. Maybe I can check on your learning systems and learn it immediately in say 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and it is modern and contemporary and suits my preferences. And then you can actually create a culture where it's truly a learning organization and where people see the value in it. Now, that brings us to the last part of the session where we want to discuss where I want to leave you with the thought of how the future of learning going to look like. Whenever we talk about the future of anything, it's always enabled by technology, and we all know that. We all have seen that the spread of technology in the last 5 years, and especially in the last year, where things that we thought were reserved for future became almost immediate overnight. So, what would the future look like? We live in a world where we are surrounded with convenience technology. We live in a world where binge watching on Netflix is real. We can spend 8 to 10 hours binge watching on Netflix, and where attention spans for more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes are rare, because we are so distracted by technology itself that our attention spans are hard to come by. So, naturally, the future of learning is also going to look like something like a convenience solution, which is not too distant. A lot of organizations have already started investing in it. It's been around for some time, and the future of learning look like a Netflix learning interface. I'm sure some of you have already have version of it in your organization. It's powered by companies that have started creating learning experience platforms like Degree, like Edcast, like Percipio by Skillsoft, where you could actually create on-demand learning solutions for your employees, where you can create aspirational learning solutions for your employees, where you create a system where an algorithm is reading at the back end what your learner is doing, what kind of personality they fit into, what are their behaviors, and then start recommending programs accordingly. Where I, as a learner, can see what my leader is recommending, can create my own playlist like I create on Netflix, or like I create on sites like Ghana.com. I can equally focus on future basis the career programs that my organization have, or basis the career goals that I have decided for myself. And I can also explore outsourced content, like the content that's available on the best of the best, Harvard Business Review, TED Talks, anything that's hosted outside. And this way, we just not only take care of the end outcome that the learner expects, but we also take care of what business wants us to focus. We can pitch in, we can push in solutions that are required for their roles, that are the need of the hour. And just not that, it's also going to give the L&D professionals a host of stuff to do, which is really manual and which is really difficult to do today. You can actually think of a learning experience platform as a skills marketplace, where you can immediately track what skills you have people trained on inside your company. I mean, when we take the decisions of investing in external talent, it's usually because we don't have the data on what kind of talent we have internally in the organization. But this way you can track that, and you can not just, you don't have to only buy from outside, you can even borrow. You can track the skills and their expertise, so you can see if somebody is say skilled on predictive analytics, what is the level of detail in which they are skilled on that. Do they just know predictive analytics? Have they created any forecasting models, or have they been doing it for quite some time, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? You can also track which of the functions, which of the teams in your organization are skilled on what all areas. And is there any correlation between their performance and their business indicators, like NPS, like their EBITDA margins, like their profitability or cash flow? You can even track the engagement of the learner. You can use all the new age technology measures, like the repeat ratio, how many times the same learner is logging back in, the amount of time they are spending on a content piece, the app downloads. I mean, you can track all of that. You can use that to analyze the trends and then send out personalized communications. And with that, you can create an organization, a learning organization that not only just creates a great ecosystem for learning, but also also enables leaders as well as learners to actually create careers, or to create value that they have always intended to do. And with that, I rest my case, and I'll be more than happy to see if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to share my thoughts on them.
That's okay, Yamini. Thank you so much. It has been a very insightful presentation and a lot of words pouring in from the audience also. So we have quite a lot of questions here, but looking at the time, we'll just try to answer few. So the first question is around the paucity of time at learner's hand. So the attendee is asking, how does one look at building the skill while having very limited time available from the learner? In the long term, that is, and in short term, how do you look at retaining the attention of a learner or a customer?
Okay, so I'm going to first answer, how do you look at building skills?
Yeah.
So when you actually look at skill building for your learners, the one thing that you need to see is, what does the learner need? I mean, like I said, data predictive analytics can be taught in multiple ways. You Does the learner just need to know what predictive analytics is, so that they can work on the systems that are available on their in their day-to-day life? Do they need to create models out of it, or does their role require them to work on predictive analytics for say 30% or 40% of the time? That is a good guiding measure for you to design the learning solutions and go deeper. So say if I really just need to know what that is, or say if I just really need to just work on the systems, you might not want to create longer training programs. Maybe a 60-minute webinar will do, and then you can just organize it anytime during the week. Or if the learner is too busy to actually join the webinar, you can make the recording available and people can see it anytime. But if somebody needs to have a working skill, a tangible skill, then you need to go deeper and you need to schedule working sessions. What was the second part of the question?
It is about how to retain the attention of the learner in the short term. So, skill building is a long term this thing, but when you are delivering a program, how do you look at retaining the attention of the learner?
For that, you need to know what, and this is where learning personas come. For that, you need to know what resonates with that learner. Do they like videos? Do they like reading? Do they like engaging with a facilitator? Or do they just want to kind of do solutions at their own pace? Whatever is it that works for them would help you retain their attention. And if you don't have that data because you are starting out for the first time, then just try everything. Have self-paced learning solutions and have a video also, have a webinar also, or maybe have a digital learning solution and then organize a time for question and answer, or get peer mentors for everybody so that they can go ahead and discuss what they have learned. There is another interesting technology called Flip and Learn, where you actually give somebody to learn something at their own convenience, then you bring them back in a classroom session and you discuss what they have learned. We tried it in in one of my previous companies, and we saw that when people attended that session, they went back and they started learning the e-learning program because they got so interested in that. So whatever works for your learners, I mean, that is going to help you get their attention. I hope that answers your question.
Sure. Thank you, Yamini. So there are a lot of questions around assessment of learning impact. So a lot of audience from the audience, a lot of people are asking what are the best ways to measure the impact of learning, and more specifically, how to assess self-learning and group learning.
Interesting. So all of you know that projects is one way to assess learning. Feedback is another way to assess learning. Something that we have started to do other than these measures, because projects and feedbacks are difficult to gauge. What we do, we assess the effectiveness of that person. We see on what spectrum of learning does this person fall. Are they so what we have done in our company, we have categorized learning personas. We have somebody called an engaged learner. We have somebody who's an hands-on learner. We have somebody who's a fastest learner. And we see what is the learning pattern of these. I mean, where do you fit in? Are you an engaged learner? Do you complete the whole journey? Or are you a fastest learner? You start a lot of courses, you finish it in a long time, but we don't hear any feedback from you. So we try to see what kind of learner it is, and then we see the kind of impact that they have in their own roles. We link it with their KPIs, we link it with their the feedback from themselves, the feedback from their peers, the feedback from their managers. We also see what kind of programs they get themselves interested in, to see if there is a role relevance. Do they pick up the skills that are relevant for their role? Do they pick up the skills that their manager has mandated in, say, performance management conversations or coaching conversations? Or do they pick up the skills that the organization mandates? So we try to just try out different permutations and combinations and gauge learning effectiveness that way. Of course, the traditional ways is to measure the reaction, which is the feedback, to do assessments afterwards. Assessments could be close ended, where you ask questions and answers. Assessments could be short cases. In group, we one of the effective ways is to give them projects, or to have coaches who can observe the behavior of people and who can work with them on a longer term. These two things have helped us to assess the group effectiveness.
There has been a lot of concern apart from this, the assessment thing. There's a lot of concern around the budget from the audience here. So they're asking, budget is sometimes a big problem with the organization. So how do we make our training programs more cost effective?
Which is very interesting. So let me tell you, last year when we started off, in 2020, April to June was the quarter when we did zero budget learning. And that was one of the best quarters in terms of learning the whole of last year. So what do we do? This is exactly where the intellect and expertise of L&D professionals come into play. We started sourcing a lot of open sourced content. And when I say open sourced content, I don't mean only Coursera, edX courses, Udemy courses, because much of that is linked with a certificate. You need to pay for the certificate, but you can learn, and employees want to come back to you and ask you for reimbursement of certificates. So what we did, we figured out 5 6 skills that were relevant for our organization. We figured out 5 6 skills with from for each of the department in consultation with the business leaders, and we designed learning journeys for them. We saw that people were very interested in learning journeys that were 2 hour or 3 hours, less than 2 hours or less than 3 hours. And we designed it in a way that gave them some knowledge, some best practices, and a few exercises that they could do: reflection exercises, projects exercises, application exercises. And these learning journeys were constructed with content from HBR articles, HBR videos, HBR podcasts, or some of the research reports from McKinsey, a lot of good videos from YouTube, TED, and a few courses that we could find complimentary for them if you have no budget. If you have some budget, then invest in a MOOC that can give you an endless supply of programs. Because when you think of learning, you don't think of learning in soft skills only. Soft skills, power skills, technical skills, functional skills, leadership skills, business skills, everything is important. So if you have some budget, invest in a MOOC provider like Skillsoft or any other partner of your choice. And if you're just starting out on the path of digital learning, do not go all out and buy licenses, because you'll have to train people. You'll have to change their behavior to learn digitally. Maybe you can buy a few licenses. Maybe you can have a consumption based pricing model. Use that and create learning journeys on your own. And when you think of application based exercises, projects is one way to do that, but not necessarily you all have to have a project only to give somebody an avenue to practice the skill. You can ask them to reflect on an existing process. You can ask them to innovate, create a index, create a new process, create a new system, or you can ask them to rethink something completely in terms of applying a skill that they have learned. This is something that I feel works. And another thing is that you can get your leaders to deliver sessions. All of your leaders will be experts in something. We ran a series called Learn with Leaders last year, where every once in 2 weeks we'll get a leader and we'll get them to deliver a session on something that's close to their heart. And the L&D team work with the leader to create content, because leaders don't have the time to create content. We created content for them and they delivered sessions, and that was a hit, and again a zero cost initiative. And made get the recordings. We made the recordings available on our HR systems. This is also something that you can try. Peer to peer learning again will have a zero cost. Identify who is skilled on what in your organization. Get them to conduct sessions. You can create a template and a framework and give it to them, and those people love to learn from their colleagues. This is what we realized when we conducted these many peer sessions. And that's again a zero cost initiative. You can get the learning going with all of this.
Great, Yamini. Thank you for that. So this could be the last question since we have a lot of questions around learners. This specifically talks about the business. So let's take this one as the last question for the session. So it is about how to transfer knowledge among teams so that business does not suffer if design head or R&D head leaves the organization. So basically talking about the transfer of knowledge among team members.
So, what I feel in this case, and we have had such instances, and in my previous organizations where I have worked, we believed in the power of documentation. I mean, how do project management managers work? How do project management teams work? They work on a project and then they archive all the documents, and there is a separate entity called PMO that takes care of those documents. This is the same practice that we need to borrow in other functions of the organization, where you focus a lot on documentation. In American Express, I was a part of marketing team. I was part of business and used to drive international trainings and communication, and there were a lot of international locations that used to work on the same system. And we realized that there was a specific set of knowledge that resided in different markets. What we did, we created a SharePoint internally, and we got people to start uploading their knowledge documents that they got approved from their manager, or there was a central spock who would approve that the document had everything, and we got them to upload all of that information. That's one way to do it. Again, then you can do peer-to-peer sessions, knowledge transfer sessions, and get a recording of that. And then the last thing is to get the onus of that role hold I mean to get that role holder accountable, because this knowledge that they have acquired in an organization belongs to the organization. It's not their personal knowledge. So get their teams, immediate teams, skilled on whatever they have. Get your succession planning really strong. Get every leader to identify 2 3 successors who know what the leader does. If somebody is absent for some time and all hell breaks loose, there is something wrong with your planning, with backup planning or succession planning. So people should always have their backups at junior and mid levels, and leaders should always have their successors who are able to pick up the role the next day, and that would help you. So documentation management, getting people who can replace you trained and skilled beforehand, and then creating a continuous culture of talking and telling people what they have done, getting to reflect, doing a lot of sessions help. So flow of knowledge, basically.
Great, Yamini.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So with this, we come to the end of this webinar. Thank you, Yamini, for making this a very engaging and interactive session, and many thanks to our audience.
Thank you so much, Apeksha. Thanks a lot, everyone, for attending. Thank you.